Hello, everybody. So excited to see you guys here. I have got a fantastic guest today, Rick Denley here. I mean, leadership extraordinaire to talk about driving adaptability and growth, really change through leadership, kind of through the employee experience and talking through everything leadership that Rick has to do. And so excited, Rick, for you to be here. Everybody joining us from all
Great,
over,
Kyle.
I'm sure.
Thanks for having me here today.
For sure. Excited to kind of dive in. Again, if you have any questions for Rick and I, definitely put it in the chat feature and we'll kind of grab that, talking all things kind of leadership change. And Rick, I mean, I'll start this off with the last 2 years, and obviously you're in kind of what you do and talking to different leaders, and I myself experiencing it, just the change in how leaders need to lead through COVID. Just talk about that. Just the shift in 2 years of like what has changed in leadership? What have you seen kind of effective leaders doing at this point?
Yeah, it's a great point, Kyle. Thanks for having me here. It's
Yeah,
all about change. And if there's one thing that we've learned as an entire human race, is that change is evident and change is ongoing. I mean, it's the third consistent other than taxes and death, isn't it? It's change.
right.
It doesn't go away. Now, the interesting part about change is that there's really only two types of change. There's a type of change that we initiate ourselves. And that one we hold ourselves accountable for. And we say, well, you know what, I'm going to go in this direction now and I'm going to change. That change is one that we can somehow accept a little bit better than the one that comes our way that we didn't anticipate. The change that comes our way. And I say to everybody, well, do you have a plan? And he said, well, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face.
That's
Right?
right.
And
That's good.
I'm such a big advocate of that we need to be prepared for that change. It's, we didn't ask for it. We didn't want it, but it came our way. So what do we do? Well, as leaders, it's not enough to just accept the change. All right, or even embrace the change. That doesn't work anymore. We've got to get out front and lead the change. We've got to be part of that going forward. We have to be able to peek around that corner and envision what we want the change to look like, not let it drive us. That's what people are looking for from the leadership nowadays, and it's a lot different than it was before. The expectations of everybody, employees and others, have changed, and we need to drive that type of change in our leadership.
Totally. And I think I will say you can talk to this a little bit too. And just this is leaders, this is employees, this is other leaders and organizations or mid-level management. I'm not sure I know anybody, Rick, that loves change, right? Because people love being comfortable. But I will say this, and the more change you go through in an organization, or the more change you go through professionally, personally, the more you realize every single time you go through it, you're better for it, right?
Absolutely, Kyle. It's such a great point. I love that. Change, it's interesting because our brain, the frontal cortex, is where we work with change. And it's interesting that if anybody's ever done anything repeatedly, especially sports and such, the more you do it, the better you get. And it's muscle memory, right? The brain's the same way. So if we can learn to change and change often, the brain gets better at it. It gets past that acceptance. It gets past that embracing, and it leads it. Now, okay, like you said, I don't know anybody would welcome a ton of change. We're just not wired that way, but we can get better at it. And, I take the stage often in front of audiences, and the first thing I have them do for fun is say, well, does anybody still wear a watch? I know the new generation, it's all on the iPhone and so on, but I like timepieces and I like watches. And I ask them to do this. I say, well, take your watch off and put it on your other wrist. And it's fun to watch people do it because they fumble around a little bit and they play around. And they're like, okay, got it. I got it. I said, I want you to do that for 2 weeks every morning. And they said, well, why? Because what you're doing is teaching your brain change. It's different, it's awkward, and so on. By the end of the 2 weeks, you're slapping that watch on that wrist with no problem, and you're tuning the brain up for change. So whatever change comes your way, you're going to be better at it. And you know what? I like to tell people too when we get on stage and tell them, change or die. Don't be this guy. Okay? Our ability to adapt is the greatest skill set you'll ever have. Adaptability is the greatest skill set, and that's the one that we have to work on a regular basis. And as leaders, we should be helping teach and coach it to everybody that we touch.
Totally. And the amount of people that go through it, they're like, oh, that was really hard, or that was really awkward, but I'm glad I did it. You know what also individuals have is short-term memory, right? because they do the change and then they get comfortable again and don't want to do change.
Sorry, what's that, Kyle? What did I have?
I'm just saying the change, the short-term memory.
Oh, short-term memory. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Sorry, I forgot that already.
And
okay,
so,
good.
That's right. So, yeah, but they forget kind of the work that went into it and the growth that came from it, and they get comfortable again, and they're like, well, I'm like, oh, again. And it's just like the more, like you said, the more you do it, the better it becomes. But it becomes a struggle for folks. And I think maybe even talk about this within change and within leadership and the opportunity that leaders have to drive that. Talk about the importance of, for individuals within the organization, to get them on board, to help them adopt the change. How can leaders really drive that to help, progress and kind of whether it's changing in a business model, changing some kind of business environment change, and obviously you have employees that are like super resistant to it. How can the leaders really drive that?
It's a good question. It comes down to collaboration. We want to be sure that we're collaborating with the staff now. The leadership style that used to be of thou shalt is long gone. It's a collaborative style now. People want to be, really involved with the decisions that are being made. And remember, as a leader too, if you have people that can help you plan the battle, they won't battle the plan. And that's huge. So get them all involved, get them engaged. And there's a key word too. Right now, engagement is huge. How do we engage? As leaders, one of the top roles that we do is that we attract and retain top talent, but we also have to develop them. They're hungry to learn, and that's a good thing. We learn through engagement. So don't do things on their behalf. Have them fully engaged in what they're doing. That, combined with one more thing I'll share with you for leadership right now, is alignment of purpose. I said, oh, wow, what does that mean? Well, what I'm talking about here is that make sure that you have a discussion with individuals and that you understand what is their purpose. You can call it the why if you want, but if you can align their passion and their purpose to the business initiatives, now you've got a winning combination. They're going to be fully engaged and need very little leadership. They're going to charge ahead because it's something that they wanted to do. So alignment of passion and purpose will make all the difference for leading now and going forward.
Talk about that, Rick. That's interesting. And you're totally spot on as far as leadership and how it's changed. Just, the last 10, 12, 15 years, approachability and leaders really rolling their sleeves up and getting to know your people, right, that work with you and empowering them. What are some ways if a leader's like, wow, I don't really do that super well. I don't really engage my employees to know where their passion is, to know really what do you recommend? How do they kind of start?
Yeah, that's a good question. Don't make it too formal. We've all got formal annual reviews and things like that. That's not the way to do it. It's to do it ad hoc. It's to just be part of the team yourself, not separate yourself and be on top of everything. Embed yourself in it. In fact, the last couple of corporate roles that I had in consulting capacities, I'd come in and they said, well, here's your office. And of course, they give you a big office, glass doors, and everybody said, well, my door's always open. I said, I don't want a door. I want to be right out there in the bullpen. I want to be part of the action. I want to hear what's going on so that I can have that sidebar conversation, so I can understand their personalities better, get to know your people. By all means, have a one-on-one and a sit down and ask them, what is it you want out of this? What is it? Do you have a passion for this? Where's your purpose? Hopefully you've hired correctly to start with, and that they have the same values as you and the organization. That in itself will remove so many barriers to having people passionate about what they do. And then leaders really need to listen, but not listen to answer. We think that as leaders, we have to have all the answers. It's not true. Hire good people and let them run with it. Kyle, before we came on air here, I complimented you on the great event that you had for the women in your organization. And you kind of said, well, I really didn't have a lot to do with it. I thought it was a great initiative and handed it off to people. Exactly. That's what leaders should be doing. If you have the right people, you've empowered them correctly, give them direction, and then the autonomy to go do what they need to and support them. As leaders, what we should be doing is providing the correct skills, tools, and knowledge. It's more of a coaching role. How can I help you get better? Tell me what your passion is. Which direction do you want to go in? This great resignation that we talk about right now, where you've got up to 40% of staff moving elsewhere, a huge number, scary number for leaders.
We're seeing it obviously in the staffing business recruiting. It's crazy right now.
Right. So how do we stop that? And I have executive C-level entrepreneurs come to me all the time. One of the best ways is listen to understand your staff and then align their purpose with the mission that you have. Then they're going to feel fully engaged. And it's about engagement as well. I know there's work-life balance, and now we're calling it life-life balance, I think, because of the approach that we're taking.
Right.
And that's important as well. But if you can find and align passions with them, it's going to make such a big difference to retaining that top talent. They want to be heard. In fact, when we look at the top things right now, it's that life-work balance, it's company culture, and then further down is compensation and benefits. It's not all ping pong tables and free coffee anymore. It's how do I work with an organization that I feel that I'm contributing, that I have a real purpose. That's what the leader has to do, is connect purpose and passion.
Yeah, I think you made a great point as far as going back to kind of being in an office setting. I don't have an office, and I think it's one of the more seclusive places leaders can be, because it just, and everybody's like, well, sometimes I have private conversations. I'm like, yeah, I do too. That's why I go to a room, and we have meeting rooms, and I schedule them, and I go in and I work in them. But I'm pretty passionate about the no office, just because you stay in the midst of just sidebar conversations. You get to know people on a personal level. You hear things you would normally hear. I just think it, and there's also just like us for it's a separation piece. Like, I want to be with y'all together on the team. It's like a baseball coach. I mean, the coach he's in the dugout with the players, right? I mean, he didn't sit in a box. He's not, you know what I mean? Yeah. And so I think it's super important. Like, you're on the field,
which is huge. If one more thing I can share, just to drive home the point right now, I'm going to show you on this chart behind me. Organizations right now to grow, and if you know my background, I'm actually a sales leader for decades as well as leadership, and I put in the repeatable winning sales processes and work with consulting groups that way. But the main thing is that if you're going to attract, develop, and retain top talent, that's going to grow your company. Okay? That's going to grow your company. Right now, companies are growing by spending time and effort on their people. Operations is important. Processes is important. Listen, I'm a recovering engineer. Okay? My first degree was in engineering. I can drop the formulas for you and do all the math, but at the end of the day, it comes down to your people. So leadership right now should be focusing on people to rebuild that team culture that we may have lost due to the pandemic, due to the fact that we were remote and spread out. Learn to create a culture of collaboration and teamwork for the new hybrid model going forward. 70% of people say that they like the hybrid. They want some work at home time. So as leaders, we have to find ways to make sure that we can still bring that team together, work together for the greater good.
No, for sure. I think you're spot on with that as far as everything that involves around that and pouring into your folks. Rick, what is some things? I love to kind of get to the meat of it, right? When we talk about saying, hey, really find your employees' passion, spend time with them, get to know them. Obviously that's an intentional move on a leader. They've got to be putting things in place to do that, whether it's one-on-one time with employees, group outings, whatever it may be. What are some, do you know, as you're talking to these organizations, what are a couple of unique ways that people are trying to retain employees or are really diving into it that you've seen?
One is more of a team culture and a team atmosphere. And the way to do that as well, if you have different divisions, if you have different groups in the organizations, create some common goals for them. It's a great way to bring them together and work collaboratively. Last thing we want is too many silos and having people working. Yeah. People are already working remotely. So find ways to bring them together. You had the event for the women for diversity, which was incredible. And that worked really well. Find those ways to bring people together that encourage them to work collaboratively. And if it's growth-driven initiatives, create common goals that they all have to achieve by working together. That's one way that will make a large difference. When we talk about sitting down and understanding people's purpose and their passion, well, that's the empathy part of leadership that we need to see more and more of. Hey, I care about you as an individual, not just your result. That's going to help retain top talent in an organization. And of course, if people feel that they're valued they're going to work more. They're going to work better, and they're going to be happier about it as well. And happy staff always work better. And everybody has clients. If your staff is happy and that comes through, if that's exuded onto your clients, they like to work with you. Everybody likes to work with happy people. And if that organization is happy, the people are happy, clients are going to be happier as well. Now we're talking about growth. And how do we get it? Through people.
Totally. Rick, as far as leadership, when we talk about kind of talking to or moving to engage employees, having a high level of empathy, I'm lucky, Rick. It's just in my DNA to care about people. And I don't take that lightly. It's just who I am. So I don't do anything to get that, but I do know there's leaders that don't necessarily have that gene. Like they really have to work at it and create some self-awareness that, hey, I don't have this. Have you seen that in leaders that recognize it, one, that know they need to do it, but they're not real strong at it? And two, how have they been able to kind of overcome that? And what have they done, some things they put in place to like, hey, I struggle with this. They're really good at a visionary, strategic vision. Can really, they have really strong areas, but there's some of just maybe they just struggle personally, interconnective skills, social skills that maybe aren't as strong as other leaders. What have you seen with leaders? How can they improve that?
It's a great question. And the thing is here is that, you know what, things have changed. And what got them to where they are now isn't what's going to help them get to where they want to be next. That has changed. That type of style, that leadership and so on is gone. And we do need the more empathetic leadership involved. A few things that they can do. First, really look towards getting a coach. There's all different times in our careers and our lives. Coaches always help us. Pro athletes still have coaches, individual coaches. You mentioned baseball. You have a batting coach, a pitching coach. They're all there to help even the pros get better and change. Why? Because the pitchers coming to the mound are doing things differently. The hitters are doing things differently, and we have to change, grow, and adapt to it. So get a coach. They'll be able to help you identify areas. A typical SWOT analysis will help you understand where your strengths are and your weaknesses, and then create a plan, right, to limit and improve the weaknesses and make them. Maybe they won't be strengths of yours, but they won't be such a negative as well. Listen, if I can share as well, it's why I wrote this book called Reinvent Yourself. I've gone through tremendous change in my life, personally, professionally, career, and otherwise. And I thought, well, you know what? Let's put it in a book and a story. And that book has many stories in it about change, about reinventing yourself and how you can go about it. In fact, it's a blueprint. So as soon as you open it up, chapter 1 starts to help you understand what you want to change and reinvent yourself into that person that you want to be. In this case, that leader that you want to be. It's a helpful tool. And remember what I mentioned, what do leaders do? They provide skills, tools, and knowledge. And that's all wrapped up in the book as well. And coaches can help with that too. So I would say get a coach. Don't try and do it alone. You're not supposed to be a guru at everything within leadership. And if you need to change and grow, get some help.
Rick, you couldn't have said it, but I've had an executive coach for 3 years. And the work that we've done, when I started doing it, I don't even really know how I ended up with one. It was through some kind of development program I was with. I'm just like, okay, we're done. I'm like, no, we're not done. We're staying on. We just haven't quit. And I will say through certain assessments, the Hogan Assessment, if you're a leader, if you're in leadership and haven't done a Hogan Assessment, that assessment is spot on. And it really sheds some light on you as who you are, how you show up. I think even more so, we haven't talked much about this, but the empathy, but how leaders show up. And it's a lot more of like what you don't say in meetings, right? And so I just get so busy. Typically, I'm looking at my phone or I'm doing whatever. I'm coming from a stressful meeting. She's helped me kind of be more present and slowing down. And so there's just different things that I see and do in myself, but I cannot. I'm going to try to get Tracy Kaplan. Shout out to Tracy, is who I use. She's fantastic, and hopefully get her on this show one day. But I can't recommend that enough for leaders, in that it's money well spent.
Good. Yeah, I agree. Get yourself a coach that suits you. There is a little check sheet that I use that people can get on my website, and it helps them choose a coach correctly so that they get the right
That's
one
awesome.
in alignment, a coach/mentor that they can use. So they can look there and pull down that form and utilize that to make sure they get a coach. And introspective is huge. And the one thing you mentioned right away is something that a lot of executives have to do. They have to slow down. More is not better. Quality is better. Quality time is better. Being present is better. And that tunes into the listening part. I'm listening to understand, not just so that you can vent. That's not enough. So there's all sorts of things that everybody can work on. Get yourself a coach, and it'll make all the world of difference as well.
Well, I think the other thing, and I'm still in this process, is getting a coach and then understanding who you are and why you're the way you are, and then also pulling your leadership team with you and getting them to do similar assessments and understand how they tick. It's amazing. We just went through an executive leadership kind of seminar with my coach Friday, actually, talking about how we are in the pendulum of like, hey, I'm way over here on this and somebody's way over here on the right, and really understanding that it's not, if I'm over here, it's not that I don't care about somebody over here. It's just, it's not my driver, right? And so understanding each other's drivers and what's important, it comes across. It's not me not caring. It's me. It's not one of my. It's you. You do that. You take care of it. And so understanding your team dynamic and how you guys kind of mold and do that together is super important.
One of the first things I do when I come into an organization that they'd like me to coach their team top executives on is just that, a personality assessment on everybody that's on the team. And then for them to understand who they are and understand who others are as well, so that they can communicate properly with them. It's not just handing out assignments correctly to people that have strengths in the particular area. How do I communicate on a regular basis? And to understand that, you know, if Kyle's doing this and that, I'm not taking it personally. That's his personality style. And what's the best way to approach him? It's up to leaders to adjust our styles for the different people on our team. And we want that diversity. That breeds a great team, but it creates a lot of work for leaders. But that's what we do as leaders. It is a lot of work. So understand the team, the makeup, the characteristics and personality styles of everybody before you charge ahead. That's a really important thing that a coach will help you do.
Oh, for sure. For sure. Rick, this was fantastic. I could talk for hours on leadership. So do it again. Website, what's your website? How do they find you?
Yeah, www.rickdenley.com. All the information is up there. They can go and grab a chapter of the book as well if they want to see that the fit is right for them before going online and purchasing it on Amazon. So you can go there and do that. The assessment is there as well, the tool to help you find a proper coach, and a few other things that you'd really like, including some cool videos and podcasts.
Awesome, man. Well, Rick, it was fantastic to talk leadership and the change and evolution of it. You got a fantastic platform. I really appreciate the time today. And to all of you guys with questions to Rick, hit his website, Instagram, he's at Denley Rick, I believe.
It is.
And then Twitter, he's at Rick Denley. He's got all the social media, so you can hit him all there. And really appreciate the time together. And we'll see everybody again here in a few weeks.
Thanks, Kyle, and everybody.
Awesome.
Be well.
Thanks, Rick. All righty, bye-bye.